So, welcome, Glenn. Welcome to the 21st Century Physio podcast. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. I've obviously known about .physio for a long time, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about, why you started this journey with .physio, and how you're finding it's helping other people with their physio practices around the world. So, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So, for the people who don't know you, Glenn, do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself and your background in physiotherapy?
Yeah, sure. Look, I'm a specialist musculoskeletal physiotherapist located in Perth. The background, look, I grew up in small country towns in rural Western Australia, and I thought the greatest job in the world would be a phys ed teacher. I thought those guys had the best job. But during my final year of high school, my mum hurt her back, and she was put in hospital for a week on traction.
Right.
Which is just hilarious because we wouldn't see that nowadays, would we?
Definitely not.
And through chance, or perhaps she schemed it, she took me along to one of her physio outpatient consults. And the physio started talking about things like L3, L4, and my ears just perked up and I thought, oh my God, there's a whole language there. And I was hooked, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a physio.
Fantastic. So how long have you been out in practice for now?
I got to do the maths. A long time. I graduated in 1989. How's that?
Wow.
So what's that, about 28 years?
Yeah, I won't tell you how old I was then.
No.
Definitely a long way off starting my physiotherapy studies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So now you went down the specialist pathway after you graduated. What sort of took you down that pathway? Why did you decide to pursue that?
Oh, well, look, I can pick the day I decided I was going to do it. In my first year of work, I got to go to a state conference, and the presenter was talking about mulligans, mobilizations with movement. It had just arrived. And then he wanted to demonstrate something, and it was a practical session, and he said, right, are there any musculoskeletal physios here? Could you help all these people? And it was the shock and realization that there was this whole cohort of people who knew all this stuff. And I realized then I just needed to be one of them. I wanted to be at the cutting edge of manual therapy.
Yeah. So what did you have to do to, go about that? How did you pick your area of interest, I guess?
Oh, look, I was always interested in pain. And as I said before, with my interest in phys ed and human movement, it was always going to be musculoskeletal for me. I had a mentor when I was working in the government. I was out at a rural hospital, and the health department used to employ a musculoskeletal physio who used to come and visit us perhaps twice a year, provide continuing ed, and I really aspired to be like him. So then it was just a matter of doing the postgraduate course. And then I worked continuously in the area, eventually got involved in some tutoring around the edges of a little bit of research. It's not a favourite area of mine, but I touched on it a little. And then the college changed the criteria for specialisation, and they created a grandfathering period where experienced people could just go and sit the exam without having to do the training program. And that seemed like a great opportunity. So I went through that process and managed to convince the examiners that I was sufficiently competent enough.
Fantastic. So what would your advice be for young physios out there who are thinking about going down a similar pathway, obviously without the grandfathering, but going down that specialist pathway?
Look, I can't recommend it highly enough. The self growth that occurs during the process. I remember going, when I had my postgraduate diploma in musculoskeletal, and we were doing some training for the exams for the specialisation program. I had no idea how bad I was. Anybody can convince a patient that they're doing a good job, but convincing your peers is another thing altogether. So it was a really steep learning curve. It was really painful, really challenged my ego because I thought I knew it all, but the growth is extraordinary, and I couldn't recommend the specialisation training program high enough to anyone who wants to grow as a clinician.
Yeah, and what are some of the biggest things you learned along that journey?
That I don't know at all.
Yeah,
that it's constantly
that's a scary
evolving,
thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Obviously, all the information around pain was lightning. Headaches was an area that I was interested in. There's a whole lot of information out there that as a clinician you just don't access because you're busy. Life is busy. But when you're forced to do it, it's there and it's available.
Okay. And so since 1989, when you graduated, you've obviously seen physiotherapy go through a lot of change. I think probably no more than so over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. But what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the profession for the good, and maybe some of the biggest changes that you've seen maybe for the worse as well?
Look, for the good, probably one of the best things I enjoyed was getting rid of my traction machine.
Yep.
we had a traction machine. We'd have GPs refer patients saying they need traction, and I really wasn't convinced this thing was doing any good. So as the evidence came out to show that traction was of no value, U-Beauty got rid of that machine, cleared up some space, put some gym equipment in the space where the traction machine used to be. The growth of knowledge in the profession is really exciting. When I first started in private practice, 60% of my clients came from medical referrals.
Wow.
Now it's 10%.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection solely that we as the profession have demonstrated our skills in musculoskeletal care. People are coming straight to us. They're not wasting their time going to medicine because they know they're just going to get prescribed drugs and told to come to physio anyway.
Definitely.
So that growth, and along with that knowledge and that growth, the confidence that goes with it. Whereas previously we were very much handmaidens, we were second tier to medicine. We're now prepared to challenge them, and I'm really excited by some of this research that's showing shoulder rotator cuff surgery is not any more effective than conservative care. Likewise, arthroscopies for osteoarthritis. I think there's more of that to come. Really excited.
Great. And so when you think about the physiotherapy model as it is today, sitting your practice there, how do you think that's going to then continue to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see it going?
Look, that's a really good question. I do see, and it might be my own ambitions, I do see us hiving musculoskeletal care from medicine. I think that progression that I gave you, the 60% down to 10%, will continue. I see physiotherapists prescribing, injecting, taking over all facets of musculoskeletal care. That's where I see it going.
Yep. And so what do you think needs to be put in place for physiotherapists to be able to take over that care, I guess?
Well, to be honest, nothing needs to be put in place. Yep. Rather, physiotherapists need to have the faith and confidence and gumption, if you like, to take charge. Medicine's not going to give it up. They're not going to say, oh, look, you guys are really good. Here it is now. We just have to do it. So refer for those scans to get that information, consult with medical specialists, just circumvent the GP, explain to the patient that the Medicare system sometimes requires you to go in that direction, but really if they just want to pay a few more dollars, you can send them direct and save them time.
Yep. Fantastic. So obviously a lot of your practice now isn't being driven from those medical referrals like it used to be. What are some of the things that you've had to implement in your practice in regards to maybe marketing and branding and those type of things that have really helped you, become a go-to physiotherapist out in Western Australia?
Look, we have tried everything, I think. Everything. And the conclusion is the best way to get more clients is through your existing clients. They are the best referrers. So we almost completely diverted our marketing efforts away from external marketing to just internal marketing. Central to that is to describe a customer avatar. So in our clinic, our customer avatar is a 60-year-old woman. And so therefore, we don't write articles about shin splints or Sever's disease. We don't try and be everything to everyone. We write about stuff that 60-year-old women are interested in. Now, they're great referrers because they're the matriarch of the family. They'll refer their children, their grandchildren, their husband, but it's driving them as our centre of attention. That's probably been the most useful thing.
Yeah, and was that someone that you realised there was a gap in the market there for those sort of people, or is it just somewhere patient type that you were seeing a lot of, and you decided you thought that was a good idea as a business model to see more of them? How did you go about picking that niche?
Probably the latter, in that we recognised they're the most affluent at that stage of life where they're starting to they've stopped with their own children, so they can start to worry about themselves, and they don't look like what they're seeing, and they want to improve their health. They don't want to be like their mother, who's 80 or 90 years old, who is suffering with osteoporosis, balance problems, weakness. And so they're a market that was ripe. And as I've indicated but not said clearly, you can't be everything to everyone. So you pick a market, and that's what we targeted. It also tied in with our demographic in our area. We're in a fairly affluent suburb. And so the people who live in this area are older, middle age to older.
Yeah, and I guess with that aging population that we do have, it's you're never going to be struggling to see more of those type of patients.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Obviously, everybody knows you, would have seen you around social media with dot.physio. So that's obviously something you've transitioned from, clinician into, business owner and someone who's really driving the profession into the future, in my opinion. Why did you decide to take on that journey? Where did that all start?
Look, to be honest, I was just reading the newspaper, and I read an article where the authority that controls the internet, it's an organisation called ICANN, decided or realised that there was not enough room in the .com space. I don't know if you know this, but every single 5-letter combination has gone.
Wow.
And 4-letter combination. So even X, Y, F, N, P, you can't buy. It's gone. So there's not enough space, and they realised that there was an opportunity to create more innovation by having new extensions. So they put an offer out there for applications for new extensions. And I've always been very interested in marketing, and I saw this as a great opportunity. I could see the value of registering the company name, registering my own name, registering the suburbs, because people search for physio by suburbs, areas of specialty. And then I thought, geez, if everyone did this, if all the physios did this, we would have our entire identity on the internet. So I contacted the Australian Physio Association, and for whatever reason, they couldn't be involved, and nor could WCPT. And I thought, I can't let this opportunity go. Bugger it, I'll do it myself. So I did.
Cool. Big move, obviously. I imagine there's a big expense starting to go down that path. It was obviously probably a risky time for you. You had some big decisions to make.
Yes, look, you're at a stage in your career, though, where we could have opened another practice. So you're looking for expansion, but I was ready for new challenges. This looked interesting, and the potential I felt was greater. And I thought I could offer more to the profession, awareness of the profession, by reaching a global population than just by reaching the people in my suburb or the suburb next door.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to look at it. It's, people often ask us, do you miss the practicing sort of the 40, 50, 60 hours a week, whatever we used to do? And yeah, you said you look at that global scale and the influence you're having. I think, in your case, it's just huge. So how many people have you got using a .physio now?
Oh, look, we've got a couple of thousand domain name extensions. It's taking a little while for people to see the value, but it's growing, and we're picking up some real high-quality customers who are doing some really exciting things with them.
Yeah, I can definitely see over the last 6 months or so, they've been popping up everywhere. So I think you're doing well. You've got people like, Mick Hughes, he's a big advocate of it. You obviously got the learn.physio platform that we've seen putting some good resources out as well. And then obviously we've jumped on board recently as well with this podcast.physio. Anyone who's listening to this has probably come via one of your links. So I think in regards to using the .physio, I think it is really a no-brainer for physiotherapists to get out there and do it. It gives you a point of difference in the market, I think, and gives people that instant association, which you don't necessarily get with a extended .com domain.
Yeah, look, and because it's relatively new, the opportunities to pick up some real killer domains are there. With your podcast.physio, as I've said to you privately, Steve, you guys have got a category killer there. You now own the entire category of podcasting and physiotherapy. And it cost you $90 or $95 US, and you have a magnificent brand that is going to produce returns well above that.
I think just the ability for it to be so simple and easy to remember. People can, podcast.physio. No one's going to sort of forget that. Whereas I had the 21st Century Physio podcast.com. It's a bit of a mouthful too. There's quite a number of letters to key in.
That's right. All they'll ask is that .au as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So who have you found? You've obviously got a couple of thousand people using them now. What are some of the big success stories you've had using the .physio domain? Because that's something I'm really interested in from a marketing point of view, how people are taking that and using that.
Yeah, look, at all levels. So let's start with the biggest level. Really excited to see the Australian Physio Association using choose.physio. They developed, if you're not aware of it, they developed a marketing campaign for consumers where the tagline was "Choose Physio." A great call to action. It allowed them to present all the range of problems that physio can help with, and the answer is choose physio. So it was a no-brainer for them to get the domain choose.physio. And by simply putting that dot between the words, their call to action is now also an address of where to go for more information. So really excited by what they're doing. In the practice arena, look, great example, Life Care here in Australia and a group called Action Sport in Quebec in Canada have bought all the suburbs in their area. That They know, as I said before, that people search online by suburb name and physio. They want to be the first people that come up on the list. So, they're buying 70, 80 domain names. And then you've got individuals, people who recognise that they are a brand. You mentioned Mick. Mick's really killing it. The great thing about Mick, he's not an expert, he's a curator. And he's really niched himself down to ACLs, and he curates information, and he does it under his brand, mickhughes.physio. I don't think there's any physio online who hasn't heard of Mick Hughes.
No, I think he said he's doing really well, and just providing simple, actionable tips, for people to go out there and apply in their clinics. So I think if you haven't heard about Mick, get online and check him out at mickhughes.physio, or head over to social media. I'm sure you would have seen his bald head hoppy up and down, probably on one of our mats too at some stage too, which is great. Yeah, he's a nice mat user as well.
Yep. Look, Mick is a great example. For anyone who's listening, Mick has niched some key elements. He's not an expert. He doesn't have huge qualifications, but he's niched, and he says, this is what I'm doing, ACL. And then what he does, he's taken his information and he's digitized it. And then with that digitized information, using social media to drive traffic to his website, he's making a name for himself in that area. And he's getting invitations all over the place to present his curated knowledge. And it's an example to all of us as we move into this 21st century of how you can be successful by niching, digitizing, and thinking globally.
Definitely. So you obviously look at a lot of websites. I know you've definitely checked out ours, and you sort of probably jump on and see everyone who registers .physio and go and check out what they're doing. What are some of the great things you see that people are using on their websites at the minute?
Look, the key with the website is to, again, niche. You can't be everything to everyone. So find out what it is that makes you special, and everything revolves around that. Secondly, make it simple. People typically want to put all their information on, but you don't want to put it all on the front page. Certainly let people find it later, but the front page is all about the call to action, how you can help them with your niche. And then, of course, on that front page, it's got to be contact me now. Here's an easy way to make contact with us. And so they're the key elements to what I'm seeing with good websites. Obviously, great imagery, and that scares people a little because I think I've got to take photos. There's tons of really cheap stock photos that make your presentation look really good. One of the best websites, and I get everyone to do it right now, go to winter.physio.
Okay, that's a nice domain. I like it.
Well, immediately what they do. It's related to skiing.
Yep.
And you'll go on there and you'll see one or two photos, beautiful imagery, and key text, we help people ski.
Pretty simple.
But that's it.
Yep. It's pretty clear why people are going to go and see them, isn't it? If you know the why,
absolutely. And it comes back to that niching again. You can't be everything to everyone. So just pick one thing, and don't worry, they'll come to you for that. But then they'll talk about my neck and my shoulder and my child and my uncle who's got a problem. You'll get to see the rest of it as well. It's the first step is to get them in the door with their area of interest.
Yeah, and hopefully they're not based in the Dubai or somewhere like that in the Middle East. I assume not.
Well, I think they've got indoor skiing there.
Oh, that is true. Yes, that's probably a nice domain for there then.
But it does take us on to the next point, Steve, which is telephysio.
Yep. I've noticed you've started to get into this a little bit.
Yeah, look, we tend to think of our 3-suburb radius of drawing people in. The future is the globe, okay? Telephysio has started. It's going to get stronger. Australian physiotherapists are the best in the world. we're going to take advantage of that. We could be supplying services to people in Dubai. You can anywhere in the world. So get ready for telephysio. It is the future.
And how have you found performing some consultations? I notice you can book an online consultation with yourself. How have you found that works for physiotherapists?
Look, it's a bit of a paradigm shift. You want to touch them, you want to move them. It just requires a little more describing to do your testing and explanation, a little more conversation. And in terms of the treatment, it's really no different to what we're doing. It's an education, it's advice, it's exercise. Maybe if there's some manual therapy, use a spiky ball or some other way to apply the force externally. Small paradigm shift. Once you're used to it, the principles are exactly the same.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see value in that. I know I've definitely registered a couple of .physio domains, looking at that into the future as well, because I think as you said, the scale with 21st century world and be able to target and market to anyone around the world, provide those services, I think it's really a no-brainer. We've also got some new technology we're designing at the minute to make it easy for physiotherapists to assess their patients remotely as well, so they can get more objective, reliable data to hopefully make better decisions. So that's
exciting. We'll look forward to hearing about that one.
Keep an eye on. So speaking of technology, what technology do you use to help with your online services?
Well, look, I use a ton of technology. Yeah. Look, I got to tell you, Skype, believe it or not, it's as simple as that. I can talk to people around the world, whether it be patients or other physiotherapists. I find that incredibly useful. I'm going to show my age again here. Electronic notes. Greatest thing ever invented. The space they save, the accessibility they offer, the security. I hope there's no one in the world who's still not using electronic notes. And social media, Twitter. I love Twitter for clinical education. You connect with the physios around the world. There's some really strong opinions out there. When people are doing research, they'll publish it on Twitter, like the day it comes out. It's just wonderful. So technology is making a huge change to practice.
I think definitely is a change in clinical thinking and the accessibility, but also change in regards to how you go about your marketing and run your business systems as well. It can really improve the way we do things, make us more efficient, and help us help more people, I think. So I think there's some really, really great points. So going back to .physio, where do you see that going over the next 5 to 10 years? What do you hope to see from perspective of physiotherapists building the brand of physiotherapy around the world?
Sure. Look, the first thing I want to point out is that .physio is not alone. There's 1,400 of these new domain extensions, and Google owns 100 of them. There's .apple, there's .netflix. So soon when these big guys come out with their big budgets, the world is going to know about these domain extensions. Now, there's also 19 professions, 4 in the health arena primarily, so .doctor, .medicine. There's also .pharmacy and .dentist. And so it will become commonplace that these new extensions will be used. So with physio, the vision is that it becomes the uniter of our profession in the digital space. It's very powerful because we've restricted use just to physiotherapists and physical therapists. So consumers can be guaranteed that the information they're reading is from a bona fide source. It's not just from some dodgy guy in his room who's happened to grab a powerful domain name. So it'll offer title protection to the profession and, as I said, that identity, that brand.
Yeah, I think it's a strong brand, but I think we are obviously there's lots of other professions now looking at a similar space to ourselves. We need to, more than ever, I think, unite as one and start to progress the industry forward. Which I think you're definitely pioneering that, and I thank you for your help in regards to that.
Pleasure. Yeah, look, it's vitally important in our profession where we have different names as well. So if you're a physical therapist in the US or a kinesiotherapist in France, when you're crafting a message that's consumed on social media globally, it just creates confusion when we use different titles. One title, physio, short, punchy, it means one thing, unlike many of the other terms.
And that's something we recognise with our MAT courses. We found that we started to use the mat.physio around the world because it's just easier for people to, one, remember, but two, that association, as you said, when you're trying to create your marketing material we run courses in over 20 countries, trying to tailor all the material to one particular profession, as you said, in France is different to the US compared to here. It really makes sense especially if you're looking to build a brand online, to start to look at some of these domain extensions like .physio to give yourself that easy association. So I can't highly recommend using them enough.
Thanks. The physio is a powerful word that through our forefathers and mothers has strong connotations of professionalism, quality, and attach your brand to that word and you amplify your brand.
Definitely. So moving away from the .physio for a little bit, what do you think makes someone a good physio, in the 21st century? What are some of the skills that you think people need to have to succeed? Because obviously it's getting more and more competition out there, especially in markets like Melbourne here in Australia. What do you think that young physiotherapists should be starting to look towards to make themselves the best practitioner they can be?
Yeah, look, it's tempting to be the best clinician you can be, to invest all of your professional development into clinical skills, thinking that the cleverer you are, the more people you will see. It doesn't work that way. Look, your clinical skills probably account for, I'm going to pick a number here, 40% of your success. The other 60% is your communication skills, your leadership, your branding, all those areas of self-development. Look, I'm a big fan of Nick Schuster, and I'm sure, Steve, you've read his book, Become the Ultimate Physio.
I have.
Nick's broken into 4 areas: yourself, your clinical skills, what were the other 2? Leadership and one other area. Yeah, and that's the way you need to progress into this 21st century. And then harping on with some of the stuff I said before, recognize that you are a brand as an individual. If you're on the internet, if you've got an identity on the internet, you are already a brand. So firstly, be true to that brand. Don't go off talking about, if your brand is sports, don't post pictures of cats or bikies doing burnouts. Yes, it may be an interest to you, but it dilutes and weakens your brand. People search for you online. You have to be consistent. And we talked about Mick before. Mick is the king of consistency with his brand. And look, and the third thing, and I've said it before too, think global. Okay, do not think local. Think global. Digitize your knowledge and sell it to a global audience. So that's where I see the 21st century physio has to go.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're right in regards to those clinical skills and trying to learn as much as you can from other professions as well. I know that 90% of what I do now, I didn't learn at university, being a young, physiotherapist and osteopath coming out. And obviously, as I said, it's changed a lot over the last 10 or 15 years, I imagine, for you in regards to that as well.
Yeah, look, absolutely. There is a plethora of knowledge out there that you from all over the place that you need to share and grab.
Beautiful. So if someone wants to go and find out more about .physio, they want to go and register at .physio, they've got some great ideas for it. How do they go about doing that?
Oh, look, it's really simple. Just go to www. Then the letters .dot, then .physio. And there you can search for domain names. You'll find out if someone's already got it or if it's available. It'll give you a price, and it's like any other online purchase. Set up an account, whack in a credit card, bingo, it's yours. And then from there, build a website, grab an email address. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, and as I said, I think, like the guys at Action Physio are doing in Canada, they see it as a bit of an investment as well, actually investing in some of these domains. And, as I said, personally, I've registered a few because you never know what happens down the track, I think. So these can be a good source of investment, even if you're not thinking about doing something with it right now.
Yeah, that's right. And domain names are an asset that grow in value that you could sell at a later stage. We all know the example of hotels.com. Recently sold for about $13 million, just the domain name, because it's so powerful, because it says exactly what it is. Now, you're going to see the same, not to the same extent, I'm sure, but with .physio domains, there's some powerful domains that you can grab that will turn into assets that'll build your balance sheet and that you can sell at a later stage. A practice. you buy a small coterie of domain names, so your practice name, the suburbs around your area, and when it comes time to sell, you put a value on those and sell them as another asset, or you could divest them off and say, sorry, they're not for sale, they're not a part of the business.
Fantastic. Some nice tips there, I think, for practice owners as well.
Mm.
All right, Glenn, thank you very much for joining the 21st Century Physio podcast today. There's been some great insight into, your history in regards to physiotherapy and your thoughts going forward. I think there's some really nice actionable tips that people can take away, and some really great insight on how you can build a better brand using the .physio domain, which, as I said, I can't highly recommend it enough. Make sure for us, go ahead and check matt.physio or head over to podcast.physio as well to find out more about what we're doing. How do they find out more about you though, Glenn?
Look, I'm available on social media, so Glenn Ruscoe, at Glenn Ruscoe, or I've even got my own personal branded website, glennruscoe.physio.
Fantastic. Great brand. On that note, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much again, Glenn, for joining us on the 21st Century Physio podcast. It's been great to have you.
Thanks, Steve.